Hi, I'm Emily Kaplan alongside Eric Book, and we're the 2010 Daily Collegian Men's Volleyball Reporters, and I'm here with Tom Kinslow also, and Mike Oplinger, who covered the team last year, and we're here to preview the 2010 EIVA tournament. Penn State kicks off tomorrow night with a semifinal game against Springfield. Now, Mike, where was the team last year kind of heading into this game?
Last year they were playing about as well as they had the entire season. I believe they won something around 10 in a row going into the EIVA tournament. And it was a team that won every game in the EIVA last year, didn't lose a set in the EIVA last year, and there was very little doubt that they were going to win the EIVA tournament and clinch their final spot in the Final Four. Not so sure this year's team doesn't have quite as solid of a resume, I would say.
I mean, the new players that they were working in last year, guys like Will Price, Edgardo, and Joe, just under were just absolutely on a tear coming in. Will Price dominated the EIVA tournament, was the most outstanding player, and he might have been the only player who showed up in Provo for the NCAA. Younger guys struggled, like Edgardo and Joe at times, so it's going to be interesting to see how the guys they used to replace people like Max Holt and Schweitzer and stuff like that are going to show up in EIVAs.
Yeah, now they have first-year starter Nick Turco, who's a freshman, and Ryan Wolf, who is a former walk-on. Eric, how do you think they're going to handle the bigger stage?
I think that that's going to be key to this team's success going forward. Like they said, the younger guys of last year's team were sort of peaking, and the team has played a little bit less consistent this season, so didn't blow through the IVA schedule as well as they did last season. So could be some long matches. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Now, Max Lipsitz was recently named the EIVA Player of the Year. He's absolutely dominating for Penn State. Definitely their most consistent player. Was he like that last year?
He was very consistent, but he sort of got overshadowed when you stand next to Max Holt, who's just one of the most dynamic players in the country, with similar numbers to Lipsitz, plus just the most incredible serve game probably all of us have seen. No one on this year's team is close to matching his service game. So Lipsitz got a little overshadowed last year, but he was there. He wasn't the star, but he put up very, very similar numbers last year.
It also hurt that Price was just so dominant in the EIVA tournament. His serve was right up there. It was up there with Holt's. Price's serve was like phenomenal the entire way. He even dominated USC with his serve in the quarterfinal match. It's just Lipsitz was great, and he even made the all-tournament team. It's just when you're standing next to Max Holt and then Will Price just exploded the way he did in the tournament, he gets overlooked. I mean, you talked about how consistent he was all season. He's quietly consistent. He's like one of the best middles in the country, but no one ever hears about him because he's just so quiet.
Mm-hmm. Now, someone who hasn't been quite as consistent, which they definitely wanted, is Will Price. This year, would you say he kind of struggled a little bit?
He did struggle a little bit. He's had some great matches. The last match actually coming off his homecoming to George Mason, he just went off, stuffed the stat sheet. Probably the most impressive performance by any player all year for Penn State. But he has had a little bit of consistency problems, hitting below 200 in most matches against strong competition. I think that's probably just a byproduct of him being the go-to guy and Goa setting him in every major situation. Everyone in the gym knows. But he is coming off a strong performance, so we'll see what he has for the EIVA tournament.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this game coming up. Springfield's coming off. They just won the Moulton's D3 championship, which is essentially the D3 national championship. Do you think they have any chance against Penn State?
Do they have a chance? No, but can they make it interesting? Yes. They played Penn State played Juniata in the final last year, coming off the same situation, also senior laden, like Pavlik said in your Pavcast. And Juniata came right out, and they weren't backing down. They hit them right in the mouth, and Pavlik had to call a timeout and settle them down, and eventually the talent level took over. I mean, Springfield can make it interesting, and if Penn State doesn't show up to play, things could get interesting. I mean, they lost to Rutgers Newark, so if Penn State doesn't show up to play, Springfield can certainly give it a run, but Penn State never loses the EIVA tournament. I would be stunned if they lost either the quarterfinal or the final.
Mm-hmm. Eric?
I agree. I mean, obviously Springfield took a game from here, a set from Penn State and Rec Colorado this season. They're very hot. They have 3 seniors who would want nothing more than to end their career by beating Penn State. But like Tom said, I mean, it's not going to happen. They're not going to win the match, but they can definitely take a set or two if Penn State doesn't show up.
All right, let's fast forward a bit. I'm going to take your predictions of how Penn State will finish the year. So, Mike, you want to start?
It's funny. It'll be like almost the same end result as last season. no matter how many more losses they finish with this year, and some of the uglier ones, Ohio State at home, Rutgers, Newark, but they'll probably end up being, according to how the tournament is set up, the third best team in the country. You figure they're going to win the EIVA tournament and therefore qualify for the Final Four, and they'll probably lose in the first round because they'll face, who knows, whoever comes out of the MPSF, Stanford or Northridge or some of the other top teams. They're likely to lose to those teams because those teams are just so strong this year. Do you think they're sort of just automatically in people's minds better than whoever comes out of the MIVA, and therefore they finish third according to the tournament?
Mm-hmm. Tom?
I mean, anything can happen. Last year, USC came out of absolutely nowhere, and they stormed right to the final and made it interesting with Irvine. And they could. I mean, they've got Murphy, Troy. You never know what could happen. And Penn State could get hot. They have the players to get hot. They have Will Price. They have Lipsitz. I mean, Edgardo struggled a little bit, especially in the NCAAs, but if he's setting his middles and he's getting his outsides, I mean, anything can happen. But it's hard to pick against a West Coast team just because the competition that they face is so strong on a week-in, week-out basis. So, I mean, could it happen? Yes, they're well coached, they're well disciplined, and they've got the talent, but it'll be hard for them to overcome any team they see in the West in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, I'm definitely agreeing. Penn State's absolutely coming out of the EIVA. I actually think their semifinal game against Springfield will be more difficult than whoever wins Princeton and George Mason. I think they'll come in number 3 seed. They'll play BYU, potentially Hawaii, Northridge. They played all of those teams before. They know what to expect. I think it'll be tough out there. They could go to 5 sets. Could go either way. They could get hot. But I just don't exactly see this team advancing to the finals this year.
I think they pretty much covered it. Just like Springfield could make it interesting tomorrow night, Penn State can make it interesting out at Stanford. But it's tough to pick against Stanford, BYU, Northridge, Hawaii. Although Penn State did beat Hawaii in Hawaii this season, Penn State also beat USC in Hawaii last year. So the season's long, and Hawaii has steadily gotten better all year. I think Springfield will take a set tomorrow night though, but I think they'll storm on and go to Stanford and lose a hard-fought battle in the semifinal.
All right, so thanks for watching. I'm Emily Kaplan.
Eric Book.
Tom Kinslow.
Mike Opplinger.